Hello, everyone. My name is Sawey. I'm a Sky News Arabia presenter, and I'm your host today for this session. Welcome to the Abu Dhabi Media Summit. Welcome to Abu Dhabi. It's a very lovely city, although with very expensive parking tickets. And I would like to call upon our guests in this session. First of all, Greg Sweeting in alphabetical order. Please welcome Greg. Greg Sweeting is Chief Legal Officer at the Media Zone Authority and 2454. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, you're responsible for the company and content regulatory frameworks for the authority.
Correct, yeah.
I'm also joined in this discussion by His Excellency Dr. Riyadh Najm. Dr. Riyadh is the president of the General Commission for Audiovisual Media in Saudi Arabia. Previously, he held several leading positions at the Ministry of Culture and Information, lastly as Deputy Minister for Information Affairs. And last but not least, I'm joined by Sam Barnett. Welcome on board. Sam is the CEO for MBC Group, and he comes from a management consulting background. And he says he's proud of the strong commercial organization that has become a pillar of MBC's growth, correct? Welcome aboard, gentlemen. As you can see, we have a decent mix of experience here, and our subject is piracy in all its forms. Piracy is costing both businesses and governments millions, probably billions in different forms. And clearly, when businesses suffer, governments are threatened when the countries are seen not as a safe haven for investment. How can the problem be tackled effectively is what we're going to discuss here. And I'm going to start with Dr. Riyadh in the middle here. Dr. Riyadh, can you tell us, first of all, can we explore the situation in different parts of the world? You were telling me about different experiences in different countries. I hope you can tell our audience.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And I would like to thank Abu Dhabi Media Summit for inviting me to this prestigious event. Let's always we talk about piracy, and it is associated most of the time with negativity. I would like to start by saying some positive aspects of our region in the world. If we compare the piracy level in the MENA region or the Gulf region to other parts of the world, I can tell you that we are not the worst. We are better than others. Of course, there are others that are better than us, but we are in the middle, so to speak. Take an example of a big country like China. About 90% of the viewed content in the different media is pirated, whereas in Saudi Arabia, for example, it is only 35 to 40%. And it goes on in that respect. Another aspect that maybe we should look at is piracy accepted? Is it accepted as a social value? Well, unfortunately, in most parts of the world, if not all, it is accepted by individual.
But
most of us think
35% a good figure?
I cannot judge that. I think I let the others to judge it. But it's a reasonable figure. It's not the worst figure that we have.
Let's see the experience of the UAE.
It's certainly better than other countries, at least.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Let's just tap into the experience of the UAE. Greg, can you tell us more about the UAE?
Yeah, sure. I've been following and part of anti-piracy activity in the UAE over the last 12 years. And my role is quite an interesting one because whilst I now have regulatory responsibilities, previously for the first sort of 6 years I was here, I acted and was responsible for legal affairs in the prime pay TV operator in the region. So my experience covers both sides of the equation, sort of poacher turned gamekeeper. And the experience here in the UAE has been, I think, probably one of the more positive ones in the region. I mean, I think the government federally and the government both in Dubai as well as Abu Dhabi at the Emirate level has shown a lot of progress and leadership over a long period of time in piracy in all of its formats. Because piracy, as we all know, goes from things like counterfeit goods through to gaming, software, as well as TV, entertainment, content, music. It covers anything which we consume which relates to intellectual property rights. And certainly I think whilst the UAE's provided leadership, it also to me has shown how you struggle in any government scenario to find the right ways of joining everybody up that needs to be involved. Because to be effective working against piracy, you have to be effective at the prosecution and the courts level. You have to be effective at the customs level. You have to be effective in business, and you have to be effective also then when you're looking at the legislation that you have to try.
I'm going to shed more light on this later, but do we have a figure to compare to Saudi's 35%?
I'm afraid I don't know. But what
do you think 35% is a good figure?
I think I would agree that it's impossible to tell, and I think that it's probably impossible to measure because, frankly, you don't know the full extent of piracy that's going on. I don't know how you would measure it.
Okay. How do you feel, Sam, about this figure?
Well, 35% is a big number. I think the piracy in the TV sector they're probably stealing about $100 million a year from us. We know that there are 997 channels distributing across the Middle East. 96 of them are pirates. So that's about 10% a number, but they're stealing a lot of content. Now, let me agree with His Excellency for a moment before I disagree. But piracy, no, it's a good story. People don't steal things unless they like them. And the fact that piracy is such a big issue in the Middle East is because we have a strong, dynamic TV sector. If we weren't making content, if we weren't acquiring content that was working, that people enjoyed, these guys wouldn't steal it. So it's a vote of confidence in the sector that so many people are trying to steal our content. But going on from there, I have to disagree because I think there is a significant form of piracy in this region which is different than others. Elsewhere, there is peer-to-peer stealing from the internet. So people will download from BitTorrent or they'll buy illegal DVDs. What we have in the Middle East are pirates taking DVDs or downloading them and then playing them free-to-air on satellite. They're uplinking channels and broadcasting that same content across 350 million people. So this is the aircraft carrier of the piracy world. And there are 96 channels doing this. You don't see this elsewhere. Skyfall was on theatrical release in the US and was available free-to-air on a pirate station in the Middle East. So this is big news, and we'll come on to later how we're dealing with it, but for sure there is a massive and significant impact.
Okay, before we move on, can you tell us about the difference between fighting piracy in the entertainment industry and fighting piracy or other types of piracy? Yeah, you. Please.
I haven't thought. This is the first time. I've just got involved in the piracy thing a couple of years ago when we saw. It was strange. MBC2 had been the second most popular channel in the region for a long time, and then we saw the ratings start to come down. I put pressure on the team, saying, what's happening? And then they said, well, these pirate channels coming up, and they're taking our ratings. And I thought, well, they always complain about external factors when things are going wrong, but I looked into it. And when we came back to the next business quarter, the next business review, the couple of channels which had been doing it had risen to 35 channels. And we saw MBC2's position in Egypt, for example, drop from the top 5 channels to out of the top 20. So you saw that the viewership was fragmenting dramatically. That was a big impact for us. Now, we've closed down, or the coalition that's formed now across the sector and across the region has closed down 47 of these guys. So there's 49 left, and we've seen the impact of that has been to increase the ratings on the various movie channels or the legitimate channels that are still there in the sector. So that's the impact on the entertainment. And we're going through a kind of voyage of discovery as we find out about this. In terms of the non-entertainment, I don't. Maybe the others can talk to that.
Okay. Let's move on to another subject here. Greg, some do think that technology is playing more in the hands of pirates than in the hands of businesses and governments. Do you agree with this or not?
It's a balance. It's a game of cat and mouse, and it always has been, and it always will be, depending what type of piracy you're talking about and how that develops as the way we all consume media continues to develop. So Sam's concentration on the satellite market is a very, very narrow and focused issue. Piracy as a whole is a much broader issue and needs to have a much broader approach to it than just one area. You know, if we look at the statistics that we were absorbing yesterday about growth of media in this region and where that is going, the growth, the most significant growth, is all in a digital environment. So we have to be focused on that. And I think that if we want to understand pirates, you always have to understand that they are technology driven. And I think if you want to understand how to combat piracy, you've always got to use technology as your primary tool. And inevitably, the industry, the legitimate industry, will score great successes and things will get a little quieter. And the danger then is legitimate businesses take their eye off the ball, and then the technologies get redeveloped by pirates and they take the front foot again.
But
And
why
that will
is
always,
it
I fundamentally disagree with that. But
Okay, go ahead. I'll give you a minute for
you
this.
can, I mean, the lawyers will come and say this is a larger issue, and they will turn in terms of broader abstract reasons and talk about the kind of things you've just heard. But actually, it comes down to some reasonably simple. Most of the piracy, the ones which is really impacting, are done by a very few people. And if you get a coalition of the legitimate industry, they can solve a lot of the big problems. And I'm not talking about, again, the peer-to-peer, but in the sector I'm involved in, we have a coalition of 19 players across the sector, and it's not technology, it's simple operations. If we all find out and share the information about who the bad guys are, then the good guys will stop dealing with them. It's not particularly clever. It's reasonably simple, but you don't have to get into these kind of large abstract discussions.
Okay.
And when you do, things go nowhere because we sit here for the next year or 2 years talking about how potentially we would deal with it. And I think
We seem to have
the
a
legal
third
approach
opinion here. Let's listen to Dr. Riyadh.
Well, let me look at this also from another perspective. Now, we always blame the pirates and we always blame the regulators or the governments for not taking enough action. Now, the technical part is also one side that we should not neglect, because statistics also tell us that 2/3 of the pirated content on the internet, where is it residing? Guess where? North America and Western Europe. Okay, now somebody will say this is a data center that is being used and they don't care what is the content that is there. Well, I'm sorry, this is not a very valid argument, because if that was the merchandise or weapons or drugs, then we don't say the same, we don't give the same analogy. And we tell those gatekeepers or those storekeepers, no, wait a minute, your content cannot stay that if it is illegal. So piracy is actually, it's quite complicated. And the technical element is also, I would say that it is helping pirates more than it is helping to fight them. Because always we will see those illegal boxes that can decrypt for example, encryption and satellite TV or all pay TV, and they are being smuggled and they are created, although they are illegal, but engineers who have created them. It's not somebody who doesn't know the industry, who's somebody who knows it, and he's trying to make some profit out of making these boxes.
We'll have to move on, I'm afraid, Dr. Riyadh. I'm still with you. This region prides itself on being conservative, very religious. No one would feel comfortable stealing a pack of biscuits from a supermarket. However, they would feel very innocent just using pirated content for $60, $70 or anything. Why that? Is that double standards, or is there anything wrong in the understanding of this?
Well, I think for many of the consumers of media, let's talk about media, for example. They will not see a lot of wrongdoing if they steal this content, because they think, well, it is too expensive to begin with. And sometimes they say, oh, who is the owner of that content? It is somebody whom I don't like, so why should I pay him money? So there is, unfortunately, it is not treated as stealing property or stealing somebody from somebody else like he is stealing a physical thing. And maybe it has to do some part with education, maybe. But I think it is also to do with who owns that, that content, and I shouldn't make him more richer. I should just take it if I can. And if there are not enough laws to prosecute the infringer, then maybe he gets away with it. Unfortunately, well, this is for this part of the world, but this is the general feeling in most parts of the world. I mean, it's not only specific to our part. What is specific to our part is that we have values that we want to adhere in other disciplines and in other fields, but we don't take it seriously in this part, in this specific issue.
Let's see what Sam feels about this. Is this, from a business point of view, how you see it as well?
No, I think, if consumers are offered the opportunity to take something for free, then they'll take it for free. And if you rely upon some higher ethical code, then it's not that won't work particularly well. But I would say that the people being damaged in the region, particularly in this region, I think the biggest damage is going on in the Egyptian creative sector, where Arabic movies, which have been the real engine of growth for the Egyptian creative industry, are being kind of sucked dry, because each time they release on theatrical, the satellite channels are taking them immediately and making them free to air. So a lot of money which should be reinvested in the local sector is being taken away. So I think there's a local dimension to it rather than it being a local foreign aspect.
So it's the same west or east?
I think so. My take as well, I agree with His Excellency, this is a crime which is perceived to be the victims are wealthy companies and the people who benefit are the populations. So for governments, it's not clear why this would be a policy priority. I mean, it's not clear how many political points they'll win from tackling piracy than for any of the other things that they could do. So it takes a certain level of abstraction to see that if you don't sort this out, then again you suck the blood out of your creative industries, which ultimately can be a real engine for growth.
Good. Okay, Greg, how can this be best dealt with? Are governments doing enough?
I think globally governments aren't doing enough. I think within the region governments aren't doing enough, and we all have to work to try and bring more attention. But to bring attention to it, and I'm happy to hear what Sam was saying there, because I think he's verging away from just talking about it being a tactical issue to one about being a much broader issue, which is where my mind rests. So if for anybody to do more, for governments to do more, you have to understand why it happens. What is the motivation? And there's issues of motivation, which we talked about yesterday around the industry as a whole, and particularly how digital evolves, which is that people see that they have, and this seems to be very accepted now on a global stage, a human right to access to content, to education, including entertainment and information generally. So and then there's a mindset that layers on top of that, which has got to be tackled, where people obviously believe that regulation is a bad thing. Well, actually, regulation can be a very, very good thing. Regulation should be there to encourage and create environments where businesses can flourish and consumers can be provided with the content and other services that they want to consume.
Are you saying we need more regulation?
I think you need the right regulation. You need positive regulation.
Yeah,
and I think
do we need more of it?
No, you need the right regulation. There's a danger with over-regulating, and there's a danger, and this happens all over the world, not just in this region, where people look at a problem and think the answer is to bring another piece of legislation.
Yeah, but talking of this region, do you think we have enough regulations, or we need more?
I think we need different regulation. I think we need some changes to certain laws. And I think if you look at what's happened elsewhere in the world, because we're not isolated and we're all human beings and we all react in similar ways, you can see where trying to regulate further has not been successful. So the United States has tried with looking at legislation like the Stopping Online Piracy Act, and they had another one, which I think was around 2011, and another one which was to do with protecting intellectual property rights online. And these were about trying to make more extensive reach of criminality and remove from the normal sort of court and judicial process the ability to actually take action, and it would put into the hands of rights holders the ability to serve notices on ISPs, which would take down notices that had to be responded to, and regardless of what was really going on. So no balance and no
See,
protection.
from a business point of view, Sam, do we need a different set of regulations, more regulation?
No, I think the regulatory framework is there in most countries. Most countries have got the copyright laws. What's required is for people to actually use it. We are extremely frustrated that the Hollywood studios haven't launched one single case in any of the areas against the kind of piracy we're fighting right now, and we're having to resolve it locally. And I think they're wary of doing it because, one, we've already paid them the money, so why would they bother? But secondly, they fear getting embroiled in what they perceive would be difficult and lengthy, long local legal procedures. Now that's a shame, because if you can get rights owners to come and defend it, then that's positive for the industry. And my nervousness about asking for extra regulation, the dynamism certainly of the satellite TV sector was because it wasn't regulated. I mean, satellite TV, the whole sector emerged because it wasn't under any one of the ministries of information. It was on satellite.
This regulation be used politically, are you saying?
Well, my take is, before leaping into regulating media in a broad way to try and hit pirates, just be wary. It's not my place to say what you do or that you don't do, but I would just observe in other jurisdictions where you start to regulate media for one thing, then what happens elsewhere.
Okay. Dr. Riyadh,
yes.
Sorry, I'll have to be mindful of time.
Okay.
Let me just
we still have 16 minutes, so it's okay.
We have
for
a
15
bit of
now.
other aspects to cover. Let me just ask you very bluntly. Some here would say, let me just please put this forward. Some here would say that governments are much better in enforcing censorship than they are in fighting piracy. Do you agree with this?
Of course I don't. Well, let's I mean, maybe you can ask me, why do you want to fight piracy? And as a regulator, I will tell you that it's two things, two objectives we want to fight piracy, at least in Saudi Arabia and in this part of the world. First is to protect the content owners, and because we have a law to protect the intellectual property rights. So this is one main objective, and that we have to enforce. The second issue is pirated content in media. In many cases, it's illegal, whether it has intellectual property rights or not. It is illegal in our part of the world. So we want to fight it because it is illegal to have it to begin with. So these are the two aspects of why we want to fight piracy. Now, having the laws is one thing, and then the other issue is to implement them and to enforce them. And maybe sometimes the enforcement, sometimes it is difficult or it is lenient, and that is probably where we should work more. Let me comment on the issue of the piracy over satellite and these satellite channels that are...
I only have 30 seconds for this.
Yeah, okay. No, just because the same thing is happening now on the internet. And it is not only happening in our part of the world, it is happening all over the world. Now, somebody will just take legally one set of content, and then he distributes it for free or on another site, which is illegal. Now, how to fight that? This is a world battle. It's not one single country battle.
That's a very long answer.
Yes.
Okay. Greg, isn't there some sort of corporate social responsibility for companies? They are gaining money, they are making money. However, there are people who can't afford to buy legal copies. How could this be balanced? Business needs against corporate social responsibility.
There is a responsibility, you're absolutely right. The truth is that you only have to look at what happened to the global music industry to see that if you don't provide people what they want and all people what they want, how they want to consume it, they're going to take it for themselves. And the opportunity, I think, is very much through technology again. My understanding is India is about to receive an $80 smartphone There's one that could come out soon in Egypt at a $55 price point. So already you're bringing access to a much broader market than was available before, and they will access content, and if content providers aren't there to provide the content at the price points they want, they're going to find other ways of stealing. So it's got to be a question of how all businesses in this sector adjust their business models to ensure they can continue to receive the right revenue streams, possibly over much broader market sizes. And then there are challenges, I think, from that as well, because all of this technology is global, and how Sam licenses his contents in and protects his rights is all very much on a territorial basis. And so we've got to look at how these types of rights are managed on a global basis at the same time.
I got 2 more minutes left. I'll have to ask you to give me some quick answers, please, if you can. Sam, can the war be won at all against piracy? Is it in the interest of companies to completely eradicate piracy?
For sure, but let me answer your last question. If MBC, we reach an audience of 120 million people each day, and the content's completely free, so it looks like we are running one of the largest CSR programs in the Middle East.
10 more seconds.
And so I think the free-to-air model will grow in importance. And so I'm not worried about content spreading on different platforms. I'm just concerned about people stealing actual programs and films.
Your Excellency, Dr. Riyadh, can the war be won?
Well, I hope, but I think physically or realistically it cannot be won 100%. And what we should do, other than introducing more regulation, is to make it more difficult for the pirates to operate and work. And this can be done by introducing some sort of regulations on the technical and licensing part. For example, for the pay TV. In many countries of the world, all the pay TV services, although they are provided by different providers, they use one single platform. And this is greatly cutting down on pirated boxes, for example. So there are some technical solutions that can cut down on piracy. Another example is by licensing different categories of distributions in a single market, whereby you can only be licensed to sell retail or wholesale.
It's a very short answer,
Yes,
Dr. Riyadh. Thank you very much. Greg, what are the alternatives if we can't win it completely?
We just have to carry on using new resources, new technology, and adapt. I think we have to, though, join up across the industry and work as a much broader, and see companies working as a much broader team than being isolated in their own particular areas. I think for a business like MBC to ignore digital is to ignore the future. And if the value of the content is already gone by the time it gets to, Sam's philanthropic free-to-air platform, then he's not going to get his advertising revenues. So, there is need to cooperate.
Our time is up for this discussion. Let me just open the floor for some questions. Anybody interested in asking the distinguished panelists we have? Yes, please.
Hi, Ben Flanagan. I'm a journalist. I had a question for Dr. Najm. The copyright breaches in the Middle East have been blamed for the stalling of free trade agreements between the region and the US. With that in mind, how much political will is there in Saudi Arabia to clamp down on issues like this? And what are the top brass and the top politicians saying about clamping down on this? Well,
I can tell you that we are doing what we can now to fight this piracy, and this is not only in the media side sector, but it's also in the, for example, computer software, in other disciplines and in other industries. So we are determined, definitely, that we want to fight piracy. Now, is it the ideal what we have now? I think we need to do some more. Of course, you all know that sometimes in order to enforce more, not only you need the laws, but you also need the funds to enforce these laws. But we are determined, and we As I mentioned, not only resorting to legal solutions, but also technical solutions to make it difficult for pirates.
Any more questions? I have a question. Sam, do you think we're winning at the moment?
I think on the satellite TV we're winning. We've taken 47 down. There's 49 to go, and I think we'll win on that front. To just answer Greg's last point on the digital, I think the war on digital will be fought by having the most attractive platforms, kind of like it is on TV. But if you have the nicest place to go to, people will want to come and consume content on your site. And that's how we're fighting with Shahid.net. But I still think that there is a B2B fight about shutting down websites which steal your content. You'll never stop all of it. Right? You'll never stop shoplifting, but there's still a point in going and trying to raise the costs of shoplifting. It would be useful, and one of the most effective ways we found is working with Google to reduce the search ranking of the pirate sites. Because then when you type on Bab al-Hara, and you'll be directed to a legitimate site rather than being directed to a pirate site. And that's a reasonably simple thing. It's not high technology, but it drives at the heart of the people who are stealing that content. So I'm after simple fixes that can, it may be tactical, Greg, but it's a hugely effective one. So I'm confident about winning the war.
Are you as confident, Greg?
Yeah, I am confident, actually, and it's quite interesting hearing Ben's comment a moment ago, because it isn't true that this region isn't winning the war, even at the legal level. So but Bahrain has some of the most advanced intellectual property rights laws in the world. They're fantastic. They're simple to understand and they work. They're just not enforced very well all the time. The Kuwaitis have just signed up to international treaty obligations for the first time around intellectual property rights. So that's a huge move. Everybody is within that tent. So from that perspective, it's winning as well, and we just have to keep working on all these levels. And the one point that's we haven't really discussed here is about knowledge and education. And I think so many organisations, both business and government, have a responsibility to work over a long period of time at getting people to understand what intellectual property rights are about. That there is value to them, that jobs can be created around intellectual property rights and GDP created around those things, and that's actually part of people's future.
I have another question, but let me just make sure that nobody here is interested in asking questions at the moment. Oh, yes, the gentleman, please.
Yes, it's a question really for MBC, this one. In terms of your pirated content, a lot of your content, of course, the most popular is by its nature quite live in terms of the featured shows on NBC One. So I'm guessing that a lot of the pirated content that you have to deal with is Hollywood content. Can't you just punish the studios directly and withhold payment to them until they sort it out?
That's a fantastic idea. Thank you for that one. There is an argument saying if we're not getting the first run, why should we pay for the first run? And as I say, we've paid for the content currently, but when the deals come up for renewal in the next couple of years, maybe I'll get back to you and we'll work out this argument. But actually, the piracy, the Western content isn't actually the most popular here. The most popular content in this part of the world is the local, high-quality Arabic content. Okay, it's the dramas, the comedies, the things that O3 is producing. That's what people want to get, and that's why it's really disappointing when they you suddenly see them on a site like Ekla. Which its business model is stealing local Arabic content, and they get tens of millions of views. That's disappointing. But it's Arabic content rather than the Western, which is really the painful thing on digital.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Okay, I'm free now to ask. Dr. Riyadh, should the aim be containing piracy or completely eradicating it? And are companies really serious about this goal?
Well, containing is the first stage, but eradication is the objective. But can you eradicate it 100%? I think we will all agree that we cannot do that, because there are other things in the world that are illegal totally, and they are still there because somebody has the guts and has the will to try to break the laws, and because the returns are high. So eradicating is an objective, but I think working more on eradication will just increase the level of adherence to IPR.
But does it serve the interest of certain companies to just have a certain level of piracy?
Well, I think you raise an interesting point, and maybe those companies who would want, maybe this does not apply to media, but it applies to maybe operating systems or things that I'm not trying to hint any companies here, but things that are used by the masses. Maybe it's in the interest of those companies to maintain the piracy because this is now a de facto system that is being worldwide, and this prohibits or prevents new or other competitors from going into the market. As long as it is used by the masses, by the majority of people, then why should somebody else try to develop something competitive?
Greg, do you agree with this?
Primarily, yes. I think that on the company point, though, I'd add one thing, which is that businesses who depend upon intellectual property rights for their value need to also look very hard at themselves in the region and recognize where they are and when they are not properly managing and licensing and paying for rights that they earn. And in big and complex businesses, there are issues like that, and there naturally will be in businesses. But part of this has got to start from within the different industries that rely upon IPR.
Sam, the final 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was just thinking one other very simple thing that we've done is we went to advertisers and said, look, please don't advertise on the pirates, because before they weren't clear who were the pirates. And we had some of the pirate stations attracting some of the biggest soft drink adverts in the Middle East. But when we went to them and said, look, please stop doing this, of course they have no interest in supporting organised crime, so they stopped it. So again, there are simple things you can do to take away the revenue streams. I agree, if we can get a wider solution, that will be great. Absolutely, with Dr. Riyadh, we'll never solve the issue completely, but there are a series of simple things which will enable us to win.
That's all about our time. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. I'll have to thank my panelists again, Greg Sweeting and His Excellency Dr. Riyadh Najm and Sam Barnett. And thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
شكرا لأسد وللمتحدثين في هذه